Before we begin today's show, I'd like to take a moment to tell you about a new element to the podcast. I'm now officially on Patreon. Have you ever thought to yourself, why didn't Derek ask that question? I know I certainly have. Then head over to patreon.com/DDiamondPodcast and you'll get the chance to ask the guest of my show a question. You'll also get early access to episodes and a chance to vote on show topics. I'd also like to give a shout out to our patrons Josh Shinnework and Tim Spivey. Thank you guys so much for your contributions. And again, if you'd like to be a part of our awesome community, just head over to patreon.com/DDiamondPodcast. And now, on with the show. Welcome to the Derek Diamond Experience podcast, where every week I take a look inside the world of film and television with those who have lived it and experienced it. I am your host, Derek Diamond, and for this week's show, we're going to be doing our monthly roundtable discussion as voted on by members of my Patreon, and this is a topic that has been way overdue on the show. We've talked about doing this show for what seems like years, but we're finally doing it. It is a roundtable discussion on the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie released in 1990, 30 years ago. It is crazy to say that. But joining me for this roundtable discussion, first we have one of the co-writers of Monsters Anonymous, as well as my co-host on the Nerd Cave Retro Show, Mr. Jason Robbins. How are you, sir?
Oh, a fellow chucker, eh?
I had that at the ready.
Good, now I don't have to add it in post.
I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing good. And also joining us is the other co-writer of Monsters Anonymous, the official fact-checker of the Nerd Cave Retro Show, award-winning comedy writer, Mr. Wally Phelps. How are you, my friend?
Good. It's now award-winning comedy writer, future congressman, Wally Phelps.
The people's congressman.
That's right, if you smell what I am cooking.
Dude, according to social media, Wally got quite a few votes for congressman in Mississippi. So I'm like, man, we need to really think about running you for the next congressional election.
I've literally been Googling what I need to do to be on the ballot. That's all I want, to be on the ballot.
Did you ever find out like what % of the vote you got?
No, I mean, all write-ins were 14%. Jason's like, well, how many write-ins could they have? Honestly, I've heard anywhere from Gene Taylor, who was running against the guy last time, all the way to somebody writing in Mickey Mouse. So it's like, you know, I accept this position on behalf of all. You know, it's going to be wonderful if I get on the ballot.
I'm pretty sure you got enough people to vote for you that the vote counters were like, who is this Wally Phelps guy?
Like getting frustrated at it. That's how I feel about it. It's like, what is this?
If we want to make this happen, I will be your documentarian. I will make all your campaign videos for you.
That would be amazing. You know, yes. I mean, I've got people in mind for like social media manager and all that. And I was thinking about doing a podcast, a weekly or monthly podcast called Phelps Helps.
I like it.
I would subscribe to that in a heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But yeah, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll stop the political discussion, Fred. We'll save that for a future podcast. But we're here to discuss the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie released on March 30th, 1990. So we are 30 years and change away from the initial release. And what's so special about this movie to me, in addition to being a huge Ninja Turtles fan, because there have been a few fandoms that have stayed with me since childhood. Legend of Zelda is one, Star Wars is another. The other is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I remember watching the cartoon as a kid, huge fan of that, had action figures, comic books, anything Turtles related I could get my hands on, I had it. But what's so special about the movie is it's the very first movie I can remember seeing in a theater. So this came out in March of 90, so I was just under 4 years old when this came out, but I could still remember to this day going to the old Cordova Mall theater. It was like a 1 or 2 screen theater inside the mall, and it was myself, my mom, and my aunt, and we went and saw this movie. And I can still remember vivid moments from the movie, like being in the actual room watching it. So, Wally, we'll start with you. What's your first memory of this movie being released?
I remember I watched it very late in its run, mainly because I think my parents took me to the movies, and I didn't know it was released yet. I was 9 years old, but when we were there, we were watching something else, and I don't remember. But I remember looking up at the marquee, and there was the 4 turtles poking their heads out of the sewer, and I'm like, wait, that's in the theater I'm in right now, and we're not seeing that? But fast forward months later, my uncle worked at the Silver Screen Theater. And the Silver Screen was one of those where you pay $2 and you go see a movie. And,
second run. It was a second run type of theater.
Right. It was a double feature with Willow. And we went in there, and that's the first time I saw it. Basically, by ourselves. We had a table to ourselves. Yeah, they had tables. Mm-hmm. And we had a pizza. And my uncle was drinking a beer. And it was a fabulous movie-going experience.
I miss that theater so much.
Right, I do too.
You can go in and get pizza, like you said, pizza, beer, $2 for the movie. You could go in there with $10 and live like a king.
Right. I mean, we had to pay $4 since it was a double feature with Willow.
Yeah.
And then we went and we saw a movie right after that too. What was that movie? The Martians. Stupid Invaders or something like that. I don't know.
Mars Attacks?
But that was also in the theater at the same time.
Was it Invaders from Mars?
No, it was like Dumb Invaders or Stupid Invaders or some stupid thing like that. I'm going to look this up. But yeah, I mean, I remember it vividly because we went to the arcade shortly after. And we beat the Ninja Turtles arcade game.
That's awesome.
Cool.
Because we were so hyped up. But yes, go ahead.
What about you, Jason?
Well, this was the year after Batman had come out. So, America was in the grip of Batman fever for that entire year of 1989. And then soon as Batman fever started to die down, it was Ninja Turtle time. And that movie hit, the Ninja Turtles hit right at just when I was a kid, the Ninja Turtles was at their height, like the fever pitch of the Ninja Turtles at the time. And, we loved the cartoons and we collected the toys. It's all we talked about at school. Then the movie comes out and seeing the commercials for it. And if you remember, I don't know if you ever saw any of the old commercials for it, didn't really show any of the turtles. They would just show some of the scenes of like Raphael looking out of the sewer grate and stuff like that, or the sewer cover. And, they had that iconic poster where it says Ninja Turtles. And then it's got the sewer cover with all of them, their eyes looking out. And it's like, oh, what is this going to be like? And it wasn't hard to talk my dad into taking me to see it opening weekend, because my dad was really into martial arts when I was young. He took Taekwondo when I was a kid. And then it was soon after this that me and him started taking Shotokan karate together for the next 6 years, soon after this movie. So I remember going to that movie on opening weekend, and like you said, went to the theater that was outside of the mall that had, the 2 theaters in it, and went to that. And there was just, huge line waiting for the movie. This was in the days before you could purchase your tickets beforehand. So you had to wait in, 3-hour lines to get into the movie. And I saw it and just, holy crap, what an experience that movie was. Because it was dark. It was violent. and it was everything that you wanted it to be in a Ninja Turtles movie. It wasn't cheesy. It was, the suits looked great. The voice acting was great. The acting all around in the movie was great. And it wasn't, it was perfect. I mean, I couldn't say anything other than it was absolutely perfect and what it needed to be at that time. And after that movie, I was so obsessed with the Ninja Turtles for at least the next year or so before I really kind of started to grow out of it a little bit.
Well, the thing I remember about it was being shocked at, like you mentioned, it was dark and it was a violent movie. Nothing like the cartoons.
Yeah.
Because you think of the cartoons, you think of eating, cereal on your pizza and
Yeah.
the cool music and the witty one-liners by Michelangelo. Now, Michelangelo was still very much himself in the live-action movie. Like, to me, he was that link to the cartoons. He was still there for the comic relief and was still great. But overall, like, the lighting was dark. The suit, like you said, the suits looked incredible, and the effects still hold up to this day. And you think of other movies from that time frame, like Terminator 2, like Jurassic Park, those early 90s movies that in a way revolutionized effects like that, because you can still watch those movies now and they still look great.
Mm-hmm. And the weird thing is those animatronics that was in those suits started to look worse as the movies went on. That's the strange thing to me.
It makes sense to me because of the fact that it was Henson's Creature Workshop that worked on the original movie, and I think they worked on the second one also. But it was the very last film that was where the creatures were actually supervised by Jim Henson himself. Mm-hmm. And in fact, this film is dedicated to the memory of Jim Henson at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make a whole heck of a lot of sense that they would that like the third one, they look like they're made of like putty.
Yeah.
And then when the TV show, if you remember that, the Saban live action TV show, they looked awful.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, if I'm not mistaken, didn't the Jim Henson Company take their name off of the movie because it was so violent?
No,
or am I misremembering something?
You're not misremembering. It's kind of a combination of things. They didn't take their name off of it, but they didn't. That's why they didn't continue to work with the production company, because it was so violent. Jim Henson was not happy with how violent the film ended up being. To be completely frank, the movie is far less damaging to me than Labyrinth was. So I'm not. I don't necessarily agree with him. I love Jim Henson to death, but.
Well, you look at Jim Henson. If he was alive, I would say, look, I don't care what you say about the Ninja Turtles. Dark Crystal was hauntingly frightening when I was a kid. Yeah.
I mean, you look at other movies from that time, Ninja Turtles is really, yeah, it's dark, but compared to other movies like you mentioned, Dark Crystal, right, it's really not that bad.
I mean, and the movie I was thinking of was Spaced Invaders, by the way.
Oh, I remember that stupid movie.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, the Henson Company, interestingly enough, a little tie to it, the puppeteer and performer who is Splinter in the film, Kevin Clash, is Elmo.
Really?
Yeah.
Did not know that.
Yeah.
Kevin Clash. Now, he's not Elmo anymore because of controversy that happened a few years ago. Yeah. But he is the person who was performing Master Splinter. In fact, he injured himself pretty good. Not only performing this character, but also Baby Sinclair from the Dinosaurs. That was actually being produced at around the same time, because both of those puppets were outrageously heavy. He ended up injuring his arm during the production of this film. Yeah.
He must have been super young at the time.
Yeah, he kind of is. Yeah, I think the first thing he worked on, well, the first thing technically he worked on, he played Cookie Monster during the Thanksgiving Day parade, the Macy Thanksgiving Day parade. That was his first official performance for the Henson Company. But the first thing that he did was he was a part of Labyrinth. He did one of the creatures that were throwing their heads around and stuff like that. He was a part of that, and that was one of the first things that he did for Henson. So
that's one of the most frightening parts of the movie.
Right. And this is like 3-4 years later. So yeah, he was a very young performer at this point.
The crazy thing is, when I was doing research about this movie, it actually took 3 puppeteers to operate the Splinter puppet. Kevin Clash performed the puppet while the facial expressions were remote controlled by another puppeteer, and someone else controlled the arms.
Right.
So that should tell you just like the manpower that it took to make this movie happen. Because then you had, the guys in the suits, and what's cool is that all the performers who are in the Ninja Turtles costumes all make appearances as themselves throughout the movie, which I thought was a really cool thing. Like, I think it's the guy who was in the Michelangelo suit was actually the pizza delivery guy from the beginning that dropped the pizza box into the sewer.
Yeah.
So, and then the guy who was in the Raphael suit was the passenger in the cab when Raphael's chasing Casey Jones down the street.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite lines.
What was
Going to LaGuardia, right?
Looks like a big turtle or something.
You going to LaGuardia, right? I actually had to go through a few years ago when I was flying. I went through that airport and I instantly thought of that line. Like, yeah, I actually am going to LaGuardia. What of it?
Ain't that something?
Yeah, it all somehow ties back to Ninja Turtles. But I do think overall, like, I obviously watched the cartoon before this movie came out, but I guess I was so, like, Turtle fever was so high for me that I didn't think of the violent aspect of it. I just figured, it's live action, so it's going to be that way. But as I got older and I really found out the history of the Ninja Turtles, because I didn't even know about the comic books until I was in high school, and those were very dark.
Yeah.
Right. I'm always one of those people where whenever I get into something, I immediately go into the weeds with it. I look at everything I possibly could. And there was like a magazine that I remember picking up at the grocery store that had a feature on the upcoming Ninja Turtles movie. And having seen the cartoon and, being a fan of the video games, I was flipping through it, and I was just shocked at how seriously it looked like they were taking that.
Yeah.
It was like, because like the image that struck me the most was a still of Leonardo sitting underneath the tree meditating.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, wow, that looks amazing. and it was. And it's the first time Raphael says "damn," made me freak out. I'm like, oh,
yeah. That was my thought too. Because it's when. Go ahead, Jason.
I was gonna say that's the biggest thing. I think the reason why that movie still holds up is that they actually, when they made the movie, they treated it like it was going to be a serious movie, not serious movie, but they didn't take it like it was. What am I trying to say? Like,
it wasn't
it's
like
not
a parody. It wasn't like
it wasn't
comedy.
a
They
parody.
made it like a serious movie.
It wasn't made to just be, a money grab, or it wasn't made by people who didn't know the material. Like, this movie felt like it was made by people that loved the material and wanted to make a really good movie with it.
Right. It's basically the antithesis of the Super Mario Brothers film.
Yes, the exact opposite of that.
It was people who knew the material and knew what worked with the material, and that's what I think the biggest thing. I mean, and that's kind of what they got away from in the sequel, where they never used their weapons and things of that nature. It was one of those things where that first movie is a unicorn in that it shouldn't exist.
Yeah.
It's too
not,
good.
Not only that, I mean, I don't even know what unseated it, but it was the highest grossing independent movie of all time.
Blair Witch Project
Yes,
is what
Blair
beat
Witch
it.
Project.
Yeah. But I think that's a lot to do with inflation.
Well, and you touch on a good point too, because with this movie being and I think controversial might be a bit of a strong word for it, but that it was so polarizing because it was so different than the cartoon, because that's what most people knew Ninja Turtles as back then, was the fun, goofy cartoon. They
Right.
made the sequels more in tune to the cartoons, and even the newer ones that have come out, the Michael Bay films, those are more lighter in tone. This still stands apart to me as, without question, the best Ninja Turtles movie that's ever been made. And it's not close whatsoever.
I haven't even seen the second Michael Bay Turtles movie.
I didn't either.
I've seen all of them but that one because I didn't like the first one.
The only real highlight to me of the newest one was that you got to see Krang and Bebop and Rocksteady on screen.
Yeah.
Like that was cool, but otherwise it's both those movies to me are very meh.
Right. And my time is precious. I need to have a real reason to sit down and actually experience something like that. So.
And personally, for any movies going forward, I don't want to see turtles that are CGI. I want craftsmanship and
You're right.
actual tangible suits and masks and animatronics, things that looks like you can reach out and touch it and it's real. And that's
Even
what I
if they
love about that
augment
first one.
that, like even if they just have like a like they did with Where the Wild Things Are, where they have the suits and they just overlay improvements on it. I mean, not totally going out of their way to redo it like they did with the Thing remake, but just use it like makeup, so to speak.
And the thing is we made these awesome animatronic suits that looked great in 1989 when that movie was filmed. You're telling me here 31 years later we can't make suits that look just as good as that and have it be
we know they can.
Yeah, and I don't know, I'm just so sick of everything being CGI and over the top and huge explosions and buildings falling and the government is after the turtles and downhill tank races. Like, I don't need all that. I just need, like, that's what I love.
Protect the sky.
I just need the turtles hiding in the sewer. Something happens. April O'Neil gets or Splinter gets kidnapped, and the turtles have to save him and go after Shredder. I don't even need. Give me Bebop and Rocksteady. Give me some really cool, big suits that look awesome and are animatronic, and give me real tangible things and a good story filmed well, and that's what we want, or at least that's what I want.
Well, here's my pitch. Why don't we have it where the Ninja Turtles are basically these legendary things? This has been years going on, and they're now being seeked out by this secret organization. And finally, whenever the organization is able to meet up with them, the little twist turns out they're the neutrinos from Dimension X, and they need them to find and stop Krang and his minions. And the whole end of it is a giant underground battle in the Technodrome.
I like it.
Sign me up.
Send me my movie check.
Now, would you have this take place in the same continuity as this movie?
You know what? Yeah, why not? I mean, there's 4 in this continuity, and that's this one, Secret of the Ooze, Turtles in Time, and TMNT. And I really believe that we could do a sequel to TMNT, and nice little live action. It'd be great. It'd be like our version of Halloween, basically.
Yeah. And I like TMNT. That was a great, like, if you're going to give me CGI, give me a cartoon,
Yeah.
like, stylized world, like, Spider-Verse, something along those lines. There's a reason why those movies work and why people are just sick of giant CGI turtles that are 9 feet tall in a real world with real actors. Like, I don't want that.
I'll be honest, when I saw the first trailer for that first Michael Bay TMNT and I saw how big they were, I was like, I can't do it.
Yeah.
And I'm not one who's like, just like so hardcore that you can't change my mind on things when it comes to fandom, but stuff like that, I'm like, why? Why would you do that? Like, who sat in the meeting room and said that was a good idea? And I just couldn't get behind those. And I think if you were to make a new Ninja Turtles movie, I would want it honestly to look like the 1990 movie, like same tone. Like, because to me, the Turtles are best when you have, it's mostly dark, but you have that little bit of humor, much like, Michelangelo, and to an extent, Donatello was that way in this movie too, because that was, if I had to nitpick one like little thing that I may not have liked about this movie in hindsight, they didn't really show Donatello's like tech side of things. And I don't know if that aspect of his character was invented by this point, but he was more like the guy who was tagging along with Michelangelo doing goofy stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that aspect of his personality was a part of the cartoon, so it definitely would have been there, Donatello does machines, and
that's a fact, Jack.
Right. And,
well, that would be something you would want to bring out. Like, if you were to make a newer movie, you would want to have him working on the turtle van or something like that, with weapons and all kind of like, just tech systems on board and all kind of cool stuff. And what you could do is you could have that story where, the original movie happened, and here it is 30 years later. New York is a much safer city. The Foot Clan is gone. Shredder's gone. But, the Turtles are semi-retired at this point. But then, like you said, they get sought out by this company because, the Krang is coming and we need to stop him. Like, that would be a really cool, like update on the story.
I would like that a lot, actually. And you could even do what Halloween did. You can axe 2, 3, and TMNT, and it can just be a sequel to this one.
Yeah.
I mean, it would just be. I think the title should be Ninja Turtles if it's going to be that far into the future of the original.
Yeah.
Because they're not teenage anymore.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, set it in like the mid 90s, but which would, I think it would be cool to see, 1995 through the lens of the Turtles, type situation. And then have another sequel where it is 30 years later. Maybe do the last Ronin storyline.
Yeah. Yeah.
I still need to read that book.
But I would definitely love to see that more tech side of Donatello too. Like, you're right. That's really the only thing in the original kind of feels missing a little bit. They didn't really have too many like gadgets and things of that nature.
I feel like that was really the only miss on the character side, because I felt like they nailed the other 3 turtles down perfectly. Raphael is the hothead rebel. Leo's trying to establish himself as being the leader of the group. Michelangelo's doing his own thing. Like, Michelangelo to me is kind of the unsung hero of that movie, because he provides a much needed, lighthearted comic relief to an otherwise very serious universe that has been created.
Right. I agree. And the tertiary characters are all fantastic. I really enjoyed April in this film.
Mhm.
And Casey Jones
Hmm.
he was my favorite character. So, the whole, that was a crime, you purse grabbing pukes, I'm like, beat him up, smack him in the face.
Perfect casting for that too. What was his name? Elias
Cotias.
Cotias
Mhm.
played
Yeah.
that role. Perfect casting for that role.
He was the best part of the third film too. I mean, I'm like, I would, if the whole movie was just Casey Jones teaching these feudal Japanese warriors what life is like in New York City, 1996, I would watch the whole thing. I mean, it would have
Yeah.
been great. But I guess we'll see the turtles again.
They're all huge hockey fans. I just remember them walking
Oh my
around with the
God.
hockey sticks.
I mean,
just
I would
around.
even-
Each other up, and he's like, "Oh my God, I love it so much."
I would even love to see maybe Baxter Stockman, or wouldn't that be a cool animatronic to see, or even like Usagi Yojimbo show up at one point.
Leatherhead.
Oh no. But Baxter Stockman was actually teased at the end of. Well, he was in the most recent Ninja Turtles movie, but he was the whole transformation was teased at the end of it, which I think was interesting.
Yeah.
Tyler Perry played him in the film, and he did a pretty good job with what I saw. Like I said, I didn't watch the whole thing; I just saw pieces of it.
He was better than expected.
Enjoyed it. Yeah, and Tyler Perry is a wonderful actor. I don't like his writing all that much, but he's a great actor.
Mhm.
But having Baxter Stockman and Mousers would be. Could you imagine like a World War Z type situation where instead of zombies, it's Mousers coming after the turtles, and
Mhm.
oh my God. And we could update it where it's nanotechnology, so they're self-replicating using their surroundings.
Mhm.
Oh my God!
Well, that was one of the coolest visuals, I think, from the original cartoon, was the first appearance of the Mousers.
Right.
When they tear through the layer trying to get Splinter. Was one of
We can get Sam Raimi to direct our Mousers movie.
Yes.
I'm sure you would do it.
Why not? Sam Raimi, if you're listening to this, we got an idea for you. But kind of going back to the original movie, we touched on, or Wally, you mentioned the shot of Leo sitting underneath the tree meditating. That whole sequence when they're at April's old house is my favorite part of the entire movie, because it's where you really get to see the characters truly get to know each other and interact with each other. You have the budding romance between Casey and April. You have I love the dynamic between Casey and Donatello when they're working on the truck and they're calling each other names by order of the alphabet.
Right.
There's so many great lines in that movie too.
And that's the surprising thing about this movie is how much of a character piece it is. We really like everyone in the movie. It's one of those shocking things. I guess as a kid, you don't really think of it. Hey, it's Ninja Turtles, but whenever you revisit it as an adult, it's like every single character has their own
role.
Yeah, role. But I'm trying to say like desires, and they have their own goals in mind. April's trying to do the best she can as a reporter, with all of these obstacles coming at her from the mayor's office, the chief of police, her boss. Everybody is putting all this pressure on her, and she knows that she's not doing what they're telling her to do. And it's because she knows it's for the greater good. We got Casey Jones, who is this vigilante wearing the hockey mask and everything. And his whole thing is he's trying to make his city safer. The Turtles are teenagers. They're learning and trying to do what's best based on what their father, Splinter is telling them about, and then you know and understand the why Shredder is going out there and recruiting all of these people for in the crime wave. He's trying to basically make him a deity to these people and a cult. It looks
you
like.
Look at what's happening today. That's not that far fetched to have someone who gets all these, these very easily persuaded teens and give them this probably one of the most awesome layers I've ever seen in a movie with skateboard ramps and video games and food and free stuff and
MC Hammer.
Yeah.
And a variety of cigarettes.
And
regular or menthol.
Both varieties, yeah.
And to go
Sam Rockwell.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
And one of the parts, we were talking about at the farm that really kind of affected me as a kid was, you've got Raphael, who is basically barely clinging to life. So they've got him in water in the bathtub or whatever. And Leo just kind of like refuses to leave his side. And it just gives you, it just really kind of hits you. It's like, brotherhood and family and friendship and just love for someone else, and I don't know, it kind of affected me as a kid. Like that was a really powerful scene.
It really was. I mean, and the thing with Raphael is that him being the hothead and everything like that, it comes secondary because he still cares. And he still cares. But at the same
when
time,
Splinter was kidnapped, he was the most affected by it.
Right. Oh my God, that was a very powerful moment where he just like screamed and you could hear it, and oh my God, the echo. They could have played it for comedy and had it go out throughout the whole thing and go up into Earth and stuff, but they didn't. It was a very serious, poignant moment, and I really enjoyed it.
Absolutely.
Well, I think it goes back to earlier in the movie when Leo and Raph have the huge fallout, and then Raph goes up to the roof and then gets ambushed by the Foot Clan.
Right.
And it just it shows that sibling relationship in a very real way, which is ironic because it's about two walking, talking turtles, but they have very real and very human emotions. And I think that's one of the big reasons why this movie still holds up. Is we've talked about the effects and how the suits still look great, but it's also the story and the fact that it seems like a very relatable situation with real emotions.
Yeah,
that still causes it to hold up to this day. And also the pinnacle of that whole sequence of them being at the farm is when they're meditating around the fire and they see the apparition of Splinter, and they know that he's okay, and then they're reduced to tears. I get choked up watching that scene whenever Splinter says, "I love you all, my sons." That's powerful stuff.
And those effects still hold up too.
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't be as powerful if it looked like garbage, and it really did set a tone and the stakes for the third act in a way that most movies just don't get nowadays.
Well, and also if it wasn't for, the magic of Jim Henson's workshop to get the facial expressions and the emotion out of those masks. And and kudos to the voice actors as well. That just like make you believe that these characters are real and they have emotions, and like you said, these really poignant, like heavy moments in the movie. And even though it's supposed to be a kids movie, like you can still watch this as an adult and still like feel emotions while watching the movie and discover things about like humanity, even though they're turtles. But like you said, Derek, they're the family dynamic. Like it's okay to fight. It's okay to have differences of opinions. At the end of the day, you're still family, and you do whatever you need to do to protect one another, you know?
And there's layers to the performances that come across even through all of that foam and rubber. Because, I mean, the number of people that are required to get that performance, the people controlling the facial features, the people in the suits, the voice actors who are all putting on accents, you know, the Brooklyn accent for Raphael and all, you know, it makes sense in the context of the world, and it's just so layered that I am surprised that they put that much care into it, you know.
Yeah, well, you think about, like, you would at first glance you would be like, well, why does he have a different accent than the other turtles? Like, but you got to think, like, Raphael's the one that's always going off to be in the city and being
He's
around people. And,
Right.
And the others,
Everybody else they're just kind of like, no, we're gonna sit here and eat pizza.
you know, they watch TV and stuff like that. So, you know, it would stand to reason that you know, Michelangelo just kind of has that surfer like mentality, like that skater surfer mentality, like, because you know, they watch TV and they love to skateboard and like all that kind of stuff. And you know, Leo's just kind of like that. You know, he's the leader. He's the, you know, the moral centerpiece. Like the he has to have that role because everybody else is just kind of like, you know, like that family dynamic. Like you said, it's like they're all kind of doing their own thing, but they're all a family. But every family has to have that one linchpin. Right. Poor Leo, it falls on Leo's shoulders. So he's the one, of course, that feels responsible when, you know, Raphael is almost killed.
And it's that moment too, like, is that there's a good mix of humor before that happens, but when that happens, that's when the movie gets real.
Yeah.
Right. The stakes just go up at that point. And that's what makes that final third work so much, because you know that this means business. You know, they're not. This is no cartoon, as the posters said at one point.
And that's the thing. You get down to that final battle between Shredder and the Turtles, and even though the rest of the movie they're fighting the Foot Clan, you know, the fights look great, especially that fight with Raphael on the roof with all the Foot Clan, and he's fighting for his life. Like, it's visceral. You know, he's like, he's fighting to live. And then you get down to the end, and you would think, like, this dude wearing, you know, all this hardware would be dumb, but it works. And the fight looks great, and those suits move like naturally. And I don't know how much practice those, you know, the martial artists had to do to get used to fighting in those suits, because I know they had no field of vision. So those fights had to be choreographed to death for them to be in those suits and fight like that. And it's just, you can see like the care that went into the making of this movie to make it feel as real as possible.
Yeah, the performers had to carb load and drink lots of water because they lost 15 pounds every day of shooting.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Well, and it goes back to what Wally was saying about the acting performances. You even think of the fights as well. Those who are controlling the facial features of the masks have to make sure that they look real. So all these layered steps through every process of making this movie happen that I think makes it even more appreciative now when you look at what really went into making every single detail from opening shot to closing shot happen.
Yeah.
It's such a good movie.
It's so good.
Yeah.
Still to this day, a 10 out of 10 for me.
The biggest gripe I have is the rap song at the end of the film says that Raphael is the leader, and it bothers me.
Yeah. Which I think was also by MC Hammer.
No, I'll look this up. Turtle Power.
No, it wasn't MC Hammer. I'm going to remember it, like, it's right on the tip of my tongue. And I'm going to feel like an idiot because I was looking at the soundtrack the other day.
Partners in Crime.
Partners in Crime, that's it, yeah. That's another thing I wanted to touch on, too. We've talked about movies in the past. I know that the three of us have talked on episodes of the show that we've done, as well as off-air. Movies that have good soundtracks, but maybe not have great scores, or vice versa. This movie has both. I
Yeah.
love the late 80s, early 90s like hip hop style that this music has when it comes to the actual soundtrack. And the score, I believe the guy's name is John Duprez. It was recently made available a couple of years ago, actually like commercially. Like you couldn't really find the actual score anywhere, but now I have it on Spotify. The score is incredible.
Yeah.
Absolutely incredible. I love the beat of the drum whenever you hear or whenever you see Shredder for the first time. That wide shot of him like walking into the main meeting room, and then the camera comes to the side and you see the spikes on his shoulder, and then you see the mask and you're like, uh-oh, it's gotten real.
Right.
I think that that kind of goes along with my feelings on A New Hope. Like that movie wouldn't have been as great as it was without that John Williams soundtrack, because music can do so much as far as making you feel certain emotions and making a movie feel more important than it might be showing actually on the screen. Like look at Back to the Future. That's not an action-laden movie, but you listen to that soundtrack and it just sounds big and epic. And the same thing with the Ninja Turtles soundtrack is like it's got those perfect beats that go perfectly with the visuals, and like it would have been so easy to make Shredder look ridiculous if there wasn't that soundtrack underneath. Like it made him seem more ominous.
The
With
way they used that guitar was really, because it's not a lot of it. It's to punctuate. So it's like it would come around and then the music would be like down, 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 and that's it. And it's like, oh my god, some stuff's about to happen, interesting thing with you talking about the good examples of scores. I was watching Ghostbusters 2 a couple of days ago, and I couldn't help but notice that I think a lot of the reason why it doesn't land as well with people is because the music is not great. The score for the first one was done by Elmer Bernstein, and it was, he used a lot of theremin, it used a lot of, it was very creepy. In Ghostbusters 2, it's a lot of comedic, like romantic comedy beats, like and it's like, no.
Yeah, if you're gonna do that and you're gonna have a sequel to a movie like Ghostbusters with those very recognizable beats, with those songs that they use, you want to kind of bring that back.
Right. So with Ninja Turtles, the music is so good in it that it punctuates everything. It's without that, I don't know if it would work as well if they tried to go, because if you watch a lot of movies from that time frame, from the early 90s, they have this quality about them where it's really kind of that in between the 80s and 90s, because there'll still be a little bit of Casio keyboard in it, that kind of thing.
I was gonna say that it would have been very like that sort of that synthesizer sound, like that worked so perfectly for Beverly Hills Cop, but then you had that kind of transition period where that was kind of going out of style, but people were still using it and it just didn't quite work. So
with this one, it's like it's kind of in between there, because it does have the opening is very like boom 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 boom. It puts you in New York City at that time.
Yes,
because New York's not like that anymore. So you look at this and it's like, yes, that is 100% New York City under this, and then it goes into the joyous dun, 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 and it's like, yeah, turtle.
But that keyboard, that kind of MIDI horn sounds that they used for that that beginning and that dun, 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 like that works for that. But
Right.
if you would have used that later in the movie for, like Shredder or something with that kind of that MIDI sound of other instruments, it would not have worked. So you go with I call it the John Carpenter aesthetic, where less is more, but
Right. It's bare
really,
bones to the
yes,
point where you don't need that flourish.
yes,
That other ones, like other movie lesser scores, would have had like a straight on demo level beat underneath, like a bass line or some sort of electronica sound, and which is what you got a lot of in the early 80s. I mean, it's
yeah,
the early 90s. It's not, but it still works today. I mean, my little girl actually watched this movie with me, and she really enjoyed it.
mhm,
That's awesome.
And it didn't feel old to her.
yeah,
And and that's, I think a big deal, to be honest.
yeah,
Well, I think one of the biggest uses of music, at least for me in this movie, was when they're having the final battle with the Foot Clan before they fight Shredder, and the battle goes into New York City, like on the street level. And it has that
Right.
kind of upbeat tone that the beginning had when you first see the Turtles and they're, clowning around with each other through the sewer and everything. Then they make it up to the rooftop. That song's still playing. When they beat the last members of the Foot Clan and the music just completely stops and you see Shredder land on the rooftop and you hear that. It's like the air is itself being sucked out of the scene. Where you're
Yeah.
like, oh, now it's on. Like it's the fun is over.
And you can feel it in a way, because whenever the turtles are standing there, the way they react to that scenario is, okay, well, let's make fun of it for a moment. All right, let's go. It's like they are kind of giving voice to the way the audience feels in that moment. It's like,
exactly.
oh no.
They never
you
has to
gotta
look for a
think-
can opener.
They've never seen Shredder to this point, so they would have that's the same reaction the three of us would have if some dude came jumping out of the sky and landed in front of us. We would all three be like, what is up with this dude? Like it's that reaction, and it just works.
Yeah, it goes into like I mentioned the can opener line. Like what do you guys think are some of the best like quotes or lines from this movie? Because there are so many good ones. Jason, you played the fellow Chucker
Yeah.
one
Fellow
from earlier.
Chucker, yeah.
Yeah. So what?
It's like, you guys must have been studying from the abridged book of ninja fighting.
I've been trying to think of this all morning. Like there are so many good ones. Like I love the Jose Canseco bat. Tell me you never paid money for this line.
Tell me you didn't pay money.
2 for
I
1
think
sale,
that's
pal.
probably one of my favorites. Not only that, but I still do the Casey Jones oops when I do something and he crushes Shredder.
Another one of my favorites is just ninja kick the damn rabbit.
Do something, yeah. Yeah, there's that one. I'm trying to think of other ones. There's so many great
Pizza.
ones.
Wise
Dude's
man
got 30
say,
seconds.
yeah, wise man say,
Forgiveness is divine, but never pay full price for late
full
pizza.
price for late pizza.
I actually have a funny story behind that line. So you guys know our mutual friend Steve Wise. I
Yes.
posted that on Facebook just as a quote once, and Steve's like, "I've never said that before in my life." I'm like, he never stops trolling me. I respect it so much.
I know this is not this movie, but one of my favorite lines out of any movie ever is from the second film. And it's the one where they go, "Look, it's Raph. A little too Raph."
Because it's let up with it's quiet.
And one of the
quiet.
One of the scenes that as I get older, I question when they're down in the sewer at the beginning and he's waiting on the pizza and he's like, pizza dude's got 30 seconds and he's been eating the popsicle and he's got the stick. And I'm like, do they have a freezer down there? Where did he get that popsicle?
Electricity?
Yeah, but I mean, it's not like they can walk into the local, Best Buy and get a deep freeze or a refrigerator. They probably, well, I don't know. I guess they could have gotten it out the dump and Donatello could have fixed it.
Sears has a catalog.
Yeah, true. But where would they deliver it?
122 and an eighth.
122 and an eighth?
Yeah.
That was another good
I guess
one,
I'm
too.
thinking-
Where is 122 and an eighth? You're standing on it, dude.
Yeah.
One of the only things that didn't age gracefully was the little bit of homophobia in the middle of it, where he says, "You're claustrophobic." I never even looked at another guy before.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh no.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, it's whenever they're about to go down into the sewer and Casey is having a hard time with being in the enclosed space.
Oh, yeah.
But then he goes to sleep in a truck.
And then he rolls the window down. He's like, he like, really quickly. But it's a good thing he did because he saw everybody going, saw the ambush.
Yeah. Well, and he saw, what was his name, Danny? He left the sewer to go back to the Foot's hideout, so it served its purpose.
And do you like penicillin on your pizza?
And did they specifically ask for Domino's not to slice up the pizza at the beginning so that Leonardo could do it?
Very good question.
And how did that pizza not slide all down to one side from where he slid it?
I thought that myself. I'm like, how are they? No, all the cheese is going to be on one side of the pizza now.
Yeah, and that did not look like a Domino's pizza.
Oh, it wasn't.
Domino's just gave them the money.
Yeah.
Another thing too about that scene is, I will never hear the song Tequila and not think of the dance scene from Ninja Turtles. Ninjutsu. Well, this is light meditating.
Oh, and of course, there is the line, "Cowabunga."
I did love at the beginning and the end whenever they're saying like the one-liners and Donatello just says something like really stupid, and they're like,
"Right,
wait, what?
What was it? Bossa Nova?
Bossa Nova?
No,
Chevy Nova? Excellent, yeah."
Well, and of course, I think none of us have said this line as being memorable because it just seems so easy. It's like, God, I love being a turtle.
Yeah.
I remember us screaming that on the school bus when I was a kid after that movie came out.
Another thing real quick, too, as far as visual that I liked before we start to wrap up here. I loved the flashback scenes when they showed the turtles being exposed to the ooze. And even when Orokusaki kills Hamato Yoshi, the solid black background, dim lighting, loved it.
Very kabuki theater, and I really enjoyed that.
And it kind of had that weird, not quite stop motion aspect to it, but like a real kind of
like a grindhouse feel almost.
Yeah.
Like it was a 60s, 70s era kung fu movie.
Yeah. I really, really like that. It's effective. It really was.
I really enjoyed it.
I've never seen a flashback sort of done that way since.
Yeah. Honest to God, it seems like something Tarantino would do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you said, it felt very grindhouse, like real grainy, low grade film stock, but real rich colors,
Right. Like everything just kind of popped out with the robes and the colors that they chose for that. And and the quick cuts were really interesting, especially whenever they had the where he sliced off his part of his ear.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so well done.
'Cause that leads into the scene at the end whenever it looks like Shredder's about to win and Splinter shows up and he calls him Oroku Saki. And then he takes the mask off and you see the scars. And Raphael's reaction as part is like, it's him. Like all these stories they heard, they now realize this is the guy. And for those who, like I had watched the cartoon, so I knew who Oroku Saki was. So I was waiting for that reveal. And I can still remember people being shocked by it in the theater because not everyone knew about the cartoon.
Right.
Oh, I knew. I was in the theater as a kid, like, oh yeah, that's him.
Yeah,
that's the guy. I mean, and that's a weird thing about movies and TV shows like this. It's like sometimes you feel like everyone should know this, but they don't. So it's a very interesting dynamic whenever you have all these super fans who know something's about to, or know the twist or know whatever, and then you're in a room full of people who are just there for a great show, and it's like, oh, it's like, what?
I remember looking at that after he's got the scar on his face. I'm like, man, you get scratched like that by a rat, that probably got really infected.
Lucky he should still be alive.
Yeah.
But no, the movie overall is, like I said, one of my 10 favorite movies of all time. I've seen it a countless number of times. This is a movie that I can have on as background noise and not get tired of it. But I will still catch myself in some aspects sitting down and watching the movie. It's a movie that to me was a huge part of my childhood. And even, as I've gotten older and I've become more fascinated with the filmmaking side of things, I've always been drawn to how this movie was made and learning about the suits, the remote controls with the facial expressions on the suits, the acting, the voice acting, so much stuff that went into making this. I mean, we mentioned it before, it's an indie movie.
Yeah.
But it still to this day is one of the best, not just indie movies, but to me, one of the best movies ever made.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and you look released. This is the movie. Golden Harvest, I believe, was the name of the company that actually made the movie, and it was distributed by New Line Cinema.
Yep.
Who their biggest hit before that was a Nightmare on Elm Street, and combined with those two big hits, it kind of made them a bigger studio at that point. They would eventually go on to make the Blade movie, which elevated them even further. And so this movie is instrumental in having New Line Cinema be the player that it is.
Yeah. I mean, if it wasn't for the Ninja Turtles, they probably would have gone bankrupt and never made the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we have Ninja Turtles to thank for the Lord of the Rings movie.
Lord of the Rings.
But that's the thing, like that the movie still holds up. It's utterly watchable anytime, and it still holds up like crazy. Like it's still, like you said, it's still one of my favorite movies. Right. And it's weird how what they did for that amount of money to be an independent movie and just do what they did with, because that movie had to be such a pain in the ass to make. Like I can't even imagine what it took to get that movie made.
My a couple years ago, I did that survey of the greatest 100 movies ever made, and Ninja Turtles is number 81 on that list.
Too low.
What? Way too low.
It's low, but I mean, this is from everybody I know.
Yeah.
so it's not going to be. There are movies that aren't even on the list that I'm shocked about. But that's beside the point. Is Ninja Turtles 2 on here? Let me see.
What's crazy is next year that movie will be
87.
Wow.
Too high.
Agreed.
I don't know.
Absolutely
Kevin
agreed.
Nash is in that film. That gives
Yeah.
a point.
As the Super
And-
Shredder. As a kid, I
Vanilla
thought that was
Ice.
the coolest thing ever, was seeing the Super Shredder.
Yeah.
I did too until, he died. And impossible. You've done this to yourself.
You have done that yourself. Sorry, different franchise. But I know we kind of touched on it, but I'll ask you guys as we wrap up here. It's kind of a two-part question. We'll start with you, Jason. What do you think is the legacy of this movie, and what is your favorite moment from this movie?
Oh gosh, my favorite moment. I don't know if I have a favorite moment. I mean, the whole damn movie is good. Like I said, probably my favorite moment of the movie is probably the farmhouse scene. Where Leo is under the tree meditating, and then you have the montage of them kind of getting back to health. Raphael getting back to health and practicing to come back stronger and better. Like that, just that whole scene is still great. And I mean, you just look at the legacy of the Turtles. I mean, I don't know if it wasn't for that movie, I don't know if the Turtles would have lasted as long as they did to be still the relevant franchise that it is today. If it had just stayed a cartoon, it probably would have just petered off after a while. If they did make a movie, if the movie would have been to the level of a Super Mario Brothers movie, it definitely would have killed that franchise in its tracks. So thankfully that movie was way better than it probably was meant to be. And it just kept that franchise alive till today.
Wally?
we no, like I said earlier, it kept New Line Cinema afloat. It kept the streak of taking comic book properties seriously. Because before that, like literally the year before was Batman.
Yeah, year before.
So this was basically the first big comic book movie after Batman, and it just kept that momentum going. So it's not only responsible for keeping the Turtles alive, New Line Cinema alive, it also continued the popularization of comic book movies. I mean, it's a well-made film that works today in a way that a lot of movies from 1990 just don't.
Yeah.
Like Spaced Invaders. But my favorite moment in the movie, and to try to pick one that hasn't been talked about yet, in the moment where the fight with Raphael spills into April's apartment, they are fighting everybody, and they hand out axes to all of the Foot Clan soldiers. And the moment where Michelangelo is and Donatello are both basically rolling out of the way, as like a good thing these guys aren't lumberjack. Yeah, the only thing safe in the forest would be the trees. And it just to this day it tickles me to no end.
Yeah. That's a very good scene.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I think for me, the legacy of this movie is that it also introduced a new layer to the Ninja Turtles that a lot of mainstream fans didn't know about, that just knew about the cartoon, that showed that it can be taken more seriously. And it kind of continued in a way with the 2003 series that came out, where it was animated, but it had a little bit of a serious tone that reminded me of this movie. And I think that's why I liked it so much. And my favorite moment, even though I have already mentioned it, it's the scene when they're on the farm sitting around the campfire and the apparition of Splinter appears, because that showed how emotionally raw this movie was. It's a movie about 4 walking, talking turtles who eat pizza and do martial arts, but the story was so freaking relatable. Like the shot after the apparition disappears, there's a shot of just Michelangelo where he's almost like staring off into space, and he has the 2 tears rolling down his eyes, and I'm like, man, that's so good. So freaking good. But and I agree also in the sense that it helped revolutionize comic book movies before the MCU came along and the more modern DC movies came along. You had movies like the 89 Batman, you had this movie, you had Batman Returns that still laid the foundation for what's been a very, very successful run in mainstream media.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
And we owe that to Ninja Turtles. So
I didn't think about this beforehand, but it also, I think, had a gold rush of studios picking up lesser known properties as well, because we got that Blade movie, we got The Crow, we got The Mask.
Yeah.
And it's which was a New Line film also. So I think that the legacy of the Turtles is, if you take these things seriously, no matter how ridiculous they are, people will come and they will spend all of their monies.
Yeah.
And it's still going to this day. Ninja Turtles is still relevant in pop culture. And it's been around for almost 40 years.
Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, the new cartoons have all been pretty good. Because my little girl used to watch them, and I'm like, I don't mind this. Let's do this.
Yeah.
Let's watch this show. I mean, the Crane took over the world. Tell me more.
No, I think Ninja Turtles will be around long after the 3 of us are gone.
Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, we will be all looking more like Ninja Turtles, green, bald, by the time that this is all over with.
Awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much for taking the time to do this roundtable. It was well worth the wait. It's one of my favorite shows that I've ever done in the history of this podcast. So thank you guys.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
And anything you guys want to throw out there as far as plugs or social media? Wally, anything for you?
Just at The Real Big Wall on Twitter. I am Facebook / Wally is Funny. I am also be on the lookout for my congressional campaign.
Hashtag Phelps helps.
Yes.
Jason?
Just follow me on Twitter and Instagram at JFunktastic, and go give my Twitch channel a follow. Twitch.tv/JFunktastic. I'm pretty much JFunktastic anywhere, so if you want to follow me, just look that up, and that's where I'll be.
I may be streaming from PlayStation 5 Thursday, so if which not on Twitch, but just on the Real Big Wall. Be on the lookout because I will share whenever that happens. I might be playing some Miles Morales.
Ooh.
Yes.
Can't wait to play that game. Cool. Well, just as a quick programming note, there will be no show next week due to Thanksgiving, so I will be back the week of December 4th, I believe is the exact date. But if you want to follow this show on social media, I'm on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at DDiamondPodcast. If you want to subscribe to the show, it's available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcast for free. Just search for The Derek Diamond Experience. I'm also on Patreon at patreon.com/DDiamondPodcast. And thank you, of course, to my close friends, the Unicorn Wranglers, for providing the theme music for the podcast. You can check out all their music on Apple Music, Google Play, and Spotify. That's going to do it for this week's show. Enjoy the rest of your week. Have a safe Thanksgiving holiday, and we'll see you guys back here in 2 weeks for another awesome episode of The Derek Diamond Experience.